The thing I like, that's why I'm doing, retained search now, which I've never done before, and chief strategy officer, that you can take your skills and put them into another place and you learn from each place. They're not all transferable, but you can do that.
Hello and welcome to the Break Free podcast. I am your host, David Mancella. As you guys know, this time is dedicated to honor people that are changing this world for a better place. And with us, we have one of these amazing leaders, Tino. Welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be on the show. Thanks,
Tino, for
David.
the audience, can you tell me your full name? Where do you live, and what do you do for a living?
My full name is Constantino Mantella, after my grandfather. Go by Tino, of course. I live in outside of the city of Atlanta in Johns Creek, Georgia, and we've been here for about 20 years. Did I not answer one of the questions?
Yeah. What do you do for a living?
Oh, yeah, I guess I was had a mind block on that because I'm doing a number of things. So, as of January, I decided to take on two roles. I convinced both companies, they're listening in, so probably they'll hear this too, but two great companies that I wanted to work for. So I'm splitting my time between a company called Retained, which is executive search, mostly in the technology space, and could be fractional as well. And then also, I want to do some work in the nonprofit CEO, C-suite space. But in the technology space, it would be in the C-suite as well. And then in the rest of my time, to some degree, because I have a couple of things I'm doing, but my other major commitment is to a company called Relevantz, and it's a company that both companies are in this area in Alpharetta, Georgia, really close to Johns Creek, Georgia. And Relevance is an established, exceptional company that focuses on custom software development in the broad sense, particularly with tough assignments where people are looking to do everything from move to AI, to do something with SAP, or to really look at how to develop more customer experiences and so on and so forth. So there I am, the Chief Strategy Officer, the CSO, and for Retained, I'm the managing partner. So it's going to keep me busy, David, but that's the way I like it. So I'm in pretty much going into my third week, I guess.
That's incredible, Tino, and I admire your enthusiasm. I mean, like people like you and I should be looking for retirement, and here we are trying to maximize adding value, right? And that's why you're in this podcast, because it's not about doing nothing; it's about fulfilling your life purpose, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, you and I both want to make an impact, and people ask me when I'm going to retire, and I look at them, probably my eyes roll, and I look at them like, they'll see me like they have two heads or I have two heads, because it's not something in my short-term plans. I don't know. I never will officially retire. I really like to help people and help companies, and you and I know two stories of people once they step out of all their things that they enjoy and they decide to do something else. Their longevity isn't necessarily sterling, put it that way.
It's yeah, I know for sure. It's when I find people like you, I feel amazed because I'm a man of faith, and now after 50 years, I'm finally reading the Bible again, and
Yeah.
in Psalms 139 it says that the Lord has written every single day of our life in a book for our life purpose. But that is up to us, right? Because we have free
Right.
will. We can actually fulfill those pages or not.
Right.
So my prayer every day is, Lord, allow me to have that book completely fulfilled before I go home. You know?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. We feel the same way about that. And it's fun too. I mean, I have a great family and the kids are grown. And so my wife and I just, celebrated Christmas with all of them coming together over at our house. So that's great too. You balance, your commitment to home and work and all the other things we do. So.
It's beautiful. Have you been in Georgia for, you said, over 20 years? Where were you before?
Yeah, so I've moved around quite a bit, and a lot of my career, as you know, David, was in the YMCA system, which was a great purpose-driven organization. But I grew up in central New York. They're probably experiencing a lot of snow right now. I know Buffalo is near Buffalo. It's the Syracuse area. So I grew up there and went to school in Philadelphia. And my first job was, my first full-time job out of college was in Pennsylvania. And then I moved into the YMCA system, and I went to New Haven, Connecticut, and then to New Jersey, just outside of New York City, and then to Chicago, Illinois, and then to Georgia. So bounced around. And in the Y system, I had a goal of running one of the top Ys in the country. There's about 2,500 of them, I think, before I was 40. So at 39, the largest Y in the country opened up. In Chicago and New York are about the two largest Ys in the world. And I said, okay, I'm going to go for it. Everybody thought that, well, you haven't really jumped through all the flaming hoops of fire that you need to get to those jobs, because a lot of times in systems like that, there's a pecking order and steps that you take. You're a fitness director, then an associate executive director, then an executive, then a VP. And then I tell my son this and my daughters too, but I like the word reach. And it just, to me, it means like skip a couple rungs of the ladder. So I went for the job. I went out there about a week ahead and talked to a lot of the stakeholders just on my own money, and took my time doing that. And by the time I got into the interview, I think I blew them away in terms of my knowledge, given that I was never really spent any time in Chicago. But I knew, so I'll shorten the story and just say I got the job, and I did that for 10 years.
So running the largest Y in the world.
Yeah, it was great. It was great as a young guy. It was challenging because I was the first person in the 100-year history of the Y in Chicago that they hired somebody outside of Chicago. So there was a lot of, this is the way we do it in Chicago. And then I'm like, well, there's some other ways to look at things, and the board didn't hire me to, manage the status quo. So it all worked out where over first couple years, and we really built the Y, grew to 1 million members and 100,000 or $100 million operation over that 10-year period. So, and a lot of work in the inner city, getting gang members out of gangs, infant child care, encouraging healthy living, senior care. We had 1,000 kids in foster care. People think of the Y typically as fitness centers and day camps and child care. We did all that, but we also had this, about 50% of our operation was more in the social service area. So it was a great experience for me. And but we did have to change, David. We, at the end of the day, after probably the first 6 months, we ended up changing 11 of our 12 of my 12 direct reports. And I brought in some people I knew, and we started saying we have to change the people or change the people. And maybe because of my age, and maybe because of their sort of their focus and what they had grown learning, it wasn't really possible to change them. I probably would have not been in the job because I probably would have gotten uh, ousted somewhere along the line if I didn't, make those changes. But more importantly, we really grew the organization and made a huge impact on the communities around Chicago and the city of Chicago. So, as they say, the juice was worth the squeeze, but it was a challenge for the first year or two, just really getting my team in place. Brought in people from all over the country, so that brought in different philosophies about how to run a nonprofit organization. And, we raised a lot of money, built a number of new Ys, particularly in the inner city. So it was a good experience.
That is amazing, Tino. Especially, I get amazed when I see top level executives running non-for-profits because, I run and manage 7 different businesses, but all of them are for profit. And it's easier because number one, it's, the amount of value that you add is the amount of money that you will receive. That's the law of the free world and capital.
Yeah.
So if you suck at adding value, your company will be small and eventually you will go bankrupt. So you have to keep innovating until you actually create a market share that is sustainable for you and your employees. So everybody wins. But in your case, it's hard. You have to do fundraising, and on top of that, you have to add massive value still, and it's not easy. And the outreach is beautiful. For example, the YMCA, I never knew that they had this type of benefits. Like I was a Y member since I was in college. About 15 years later, like the first year that I ever went to Canada was the Y, and I stayed at the Y, and it was a beautiful place to work out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
people don't know, like it was really a place during, like just after World War II. People used to tell me that the first place they stayed when they got out of the war was at a Y. And in Chicago, we were the largest provider of SROs, single room occupancy housing, in the state. We had about 2,500 to 3,000 rooms. And so it changed though over the years, where it was to some degree it was a starting place, and then over the years it became a place where maybe it was their last stop. So what we did was we built a lot of social services around the activities for the people, so they just didn't stay in the rooms, but we had job training, we had health care, we had a variety of things. One of the Ys, we converted the squash courts into a major health facility for the people. So it was good. I think over the years, though, the Y, I've been out for quite a while now. Sometimes people will say, well, that's not our business, that housing isn't our business in the Y, and they want to go back to some of those core businesses. But when I was there, I never let that happen, because I'm like, well, we're helping people. We're doing a service. We have these buildings. The service is really needed. We just have to not do it like just provide a room. We have to do just like we would do anything else. Provide infrastructure, provide support. So that they would have an opportunity to grow and have a good life, and so on and so forth.
That's beautiful. Well, so number one, what made you go into the system, to the Y system, right after college? What was your line of thinking there?
Yeah, well, so when I went to college, I was really interested in sports. I had a scholarship for wrestling in college, so I did that for 4 years. I thought I wanted to, it was before the days where they had a degree in sports management, but I thought I wanted to go into something in physical education or that sort of area in the administrative side, though. And during college, I worked at a home for neglected kids. So I really got more opportunity with a direct kind of person-to-person outreach to really help kids that they were had not done things where incarceration was needed, but it was also, these were kids where their families couldn't handle the situation, so the judges or the family would put them in what we called a home for neglected children, which is kind of an data turned out. So I did that, really kind of got the bug. And then my first job actually out of college, I take it back, was not in the Y. It was I was the program director, basically. Recreation Bureau Chief was the title for in the city of Harrisburg. So I managed all their parks and their playgrounds and the like. And then I moved to Philadelphia and became a director of a park district, Parks and Recreation. So we built parks and lit ball fields and provided sports activities. And then the Y came a calling, and I'm like, well, this would be really good because it fits a lot of things. And it was run to some degree. I wanted to get out of city government, which was a little different experience, and get into running an organization. So the move to the Y, the Philadelphia Y system, recruited me over there to work in the for the city of Philadelphia, or the downtown Y in Philadelphia, and that's how I got my start. So I was making that shift, but it was always then the thing I liked about the Y was it really is you have to run it like a business. There's people management, there's finance, there's a variety of other things. There is fundraising, which is a little different, but it's it's all around community experiences and things that you would do, building relationships and giving your message out, making sure your message was strong and succinct, and that you were able to articulate that. A lot of public speaking opportunities. So it's I really liked the Y at the time. I think it's changed, to some degree now a bit, but during the time it was a great experience for me. And after Chicago, 10 years, I just said, all right, I want to do something else. And so 10 years was a good run for me. So then I was recruited to be the national CEO of the Arthritis Foundation, which brought me to Atlanta. So that was an interesting job. Arthritis was, one of the major national health charities, about $150 million operation. We had 55 chapters around the country. For your listeners, what I didn't realize at the time, when I left the Y, I was running a company, organization where directly or indirectly, all the people in the company reported to me. We had 35 executive directors, and each Y had their own board, but they were advisory board. We had the policy making board, and that was a structure I was really comfortable with. When I went to arthritis, I didn't realize, and I didn't ask the right questions during the interview. I was just excited to be head of a major national health charity and moving to that next step. What I didn't realize was it was a more of a federated model, where we had 55 presidents. First of all, their names were presidents all over the US, and they had their own boards that were, I guess, quasi-policy. So my job as the national CEO became more of a politician. I'd be flying one place or another and trying to convince New York City or Texas or California's chapters that they should go along with something, and they may say, well, my board voted no. Like, what do you mean your board voted no? This isn't the way I know how to run things. We did our vetting, we did all the research, we showed people what it was. It makes a lot of sense. And when they said their board voted no, a lot of times it was like, well, yeah, you influenced your board to vote no, because oftentimes the CEO in these nonprofits can make the case and support the organization. So that wasn't my favorite job, but I probably, my learning there was a lot of times your job that's the toughest, you learn the most, put it that way.
Yeah,
so,
that's for sure, right? Like when you find problems in life that they feel like they're going to crush you, it's like you said, right? The squeeze is worth the use, right?
yeah. When I left there and I went to the Technology Association of Georgia, and I did that for 12 years. And during that time, it was an association, so it was still in the nonprofit world. But when I got there, we had 300 members, and we had about a 5-month burn rate before we go out of business. And I just saw the potential. It was 2004. The technology industry in Georgia was hungry for growth, hungry for really making the next steps to become one of the top states in the nation for technology. And at the time, I like to say that the conversations in Georgia around businesses like peaches, pecans, pine tree, poultry, and peanuts, they were the areas. And I'm like, well, now we're going to start talking about payments, because we're the fintech capital of the world and other areas. And so everything fell into place. The community really responded, and we grew in 12 years from 300 members to 36,000 during that time. So we became the largest tech trade association in North America.
36,000 members in 12 years from 300. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. How do you manage that?
You know what? So one of the things that I'm glad you asked the question, because I wanted to go back to, how do you work with 55 chapters in arthritis all over the country when they have their own boards? Mm-hmm. If I had to do it over again, I think I was too inexperienced for that job at the time, because I didn't know how to. When you have ability to fire, ability to hire, ability to promote, ability to give raises, you have a lot of arrows that you can shoot. But if you don't have that, because as a national CEO in arthritis, I didn't have any of those activities. So I always thought I was a great influencer, but I wasn't a great influencer because I needed those other chits, the promotions, the awards, all those things that weren't possible in a federated model, at least as I saw it. So when I took the experience in arthritis, and when I went to TAG, Technology Association of Georgia, we were able to build on something that we called societies. So we created 36 special interest groups: health, IT, fintech, women in technology, so on and so forth. And each of those groups had an advisory board. And we were able to, what I did differently was I brought all those advisory groups together, and we added a bunch, so we ended up with 36. And we created a set of rules, and we got buy-in, and that led to really 12 years of great growth. And we had a small staff at first. I only had a couple of people. We ended up with like 40 staff. But we had 300 volunteers that were all driving content through these societies. So we'd have 250 different meetings a year that were driven by the societies, and we just supported those special interest groups. So, everybody's looking for content. So that was great content that we were able to have. So my point there is, through the learning, bringing those people together, and then everybody wanted to be part of the organization. And then we did all the other blocking and tackling. We really became, I was just going to make a presentation. I think it got moved to another month, but it was going to be around how to position yourself as being indispensable. What started to happen was everybody, like the newspapers, at the time, there's more newspapers, the newspapers, all the social media and all came to TAG. I would get interviewed about, well, I see this company's moving to Atlanta, NCR is moving here, a variety of other companies that are here. We started a venture investment event that became really a top event. So all roads led to TAG. And with that, everybody wanted to be members. So it was just kind of this self-fulfilling activities that led to the growth of the organization. If I ever write a book, and it wasn't just about me, and certainly in the book I would, say that too. But if I ever wrote a book, it would be about that experience because, everything fell into place in terms of how you take an organization on the edge of non-existence to becoming the largest tech trade association, and lots of experiences. One more thing I'll say, David, because I know you have a lot of questions and taking a lot of time with this, but I did these in my first chapter of the book. It'll say it's not my vision, and by that I mean that I did when I first took the job, I did 90 meetings in 90 days with stakeholders, people in technology, people that were members, people in the few societies that were already in place. And then I came back and I said, here's what our stakeholders are saying, or potential stakeholders. And that became the vision of the organization. And we had a small board at the time. We grew it from 5 board members to 65 during that period. But we had a small board, and they're like, okay, well, let's go that direction because that's what the people are telling us. So that was different than just coming in and saying, here's what I think we should be doing, without that kind of input.
Tino, and that's one of the greatest success for any entrepreneur is really finding out what the customer wants and needs and try to apply that in a most cost-effective way. So what you just did is like, what I find amazing is on your leadership style, right? Like you came from running gyms that extended to other type of charity benefits, like housing and trying to pull kids out of gangs, to an association where it was solely based on attacking one disease, and you were a national CEO with very secure funding and with a lot of stability, and you gave all that up to jump into the tech world without knowing anything about it, and knowing that you had 5 months of a job before you went on the streets looking for another job.
Yeah.
I think that risk, right? Like, what went into your mind? Like, how do you make that shift knowing what you were getting yourself into?
Well, in a little sidebar there, my son, who was a cocky little 8th grader at the time, said, when I came home and said, I'm going to be the president of the Technology Association of Georgia, he said, Dad, you can't even turn on a computer. How are you going to do that? And I'm like, son, I can turn on a computer. But, he wasn't far off. Like you said, I didn't know about technology. That wasn't, people assumed that I knew more than I did about that, but it became part of having confidence in myself. And David, I know you know this, and probably most people you interview will say this, but the thing I like, that's why I'm doing, retained search now, which I've never done before, and chief strategy officer, that you can take your skills and put them into another place, and you learn from each place. They're not all transferable, but you can do that. So I was confident that 2004, the tech industry was really emerging. They came out of 2000, which was, as you know, a tough time for the industry.
The dot-com crash.
Yeah, the dot-com, everybody was, before that was, what was it, vaporware, they were calling it. I was on a board that was more of a vaporware advisory board. They had a lot of clients, but they never produced their product. They ran out of money before their product got delivered. So, I saw the potential. The 5 board members that were left, they were really arm weary, I would say, from keeping the organization afloat, which was actually, I haven't used this term in a while, but, and it isn't my term, but never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
You heard that before?
Yeah.
Well, these guys are like, okay, we've given a lot of money to the organization. We've got 5 months to live. do whatever you need to do. We're going to support you 100%, which is different than if you go into a real established organization like arthritis, where the people work their way up from the local boards to the national board. It was like, no, we're doing okay. This is how we do it. And your ability to make changes quickly is much easier when there's a crisis than when there is stability. It's with stability, it's like, well, everything's going okay. Why are you coming in and wanting to change everything? And I like change more, so that's probably a good place to be, either starting something new or being in a place that everybody's going to let me go ahead and make the changes.
That's incredible, Tino. And it's only a certain type of people that are called to do that type of stuff. Like for me, it's exactly the same thing. Like I was changing jobs every 2 years. So I will go to a place, a Fortune 500 company, become the top leader in technology there, work myself out of the job, got bored, and then jump into another job and do the same thing. When I did it 5 times in 10 years, I'm like, okay, I need to do something else because this is crazy, right? I cannot sustain a job. And that's how I jumped into business, because the change was, I had the desire for change. So instead of having one boss, I ended up having multiple bosses that I call my clients. And that's how I fulfill that. By the way, my main business is the same as you're the advisor for now. We do custom software development for other companies. Exactly what you mentioned. That's one of my 7 businesses, and now they're all self-managed. So I just do advice. I just advise the businesses if they get in trouble or they set the direction. But is that right? Look at me doing podcasting, right? Why? Every single interview is a fascinating story, completely different to the other, right? Yeah. Is that change?
I'm sure you're having a blast doing it.
For sure.
How many have you done so far, David?
Over 170.
Oh, wow.
It's been 3 years. It's been a blessing. And the last year, it just exploded. It's like when you, on these things, that's another thing, right? Like talking about non-for-profit. This is my non-for-profit gig, right? Like I always work for profit. This podcast is just my give back to the world. So in fact, I'm actually investing money to deliver these messages to the world, but it's helping out, right? Like I remember my goal was, if I can bless the life of one person per episode by giving them a couple of golden nuggets from my guests, this is worth it. But after last year, I'm like, no, every episode has to be so good that it's like reading the best business book in the world. Every episode. And that's my new goal,
Right. Well, thank you for doing it. I mean, I think it's a great cause and a way to get information out there. There's a lot of people doing it, which is a good thing, but I think this one, from what I know, is special, and you're a special guy for doing it. So thanks for doing that.
Oh no, my pleasure. Thank you for donating your time on this. Quick question, Tino. If you were like a 30-year-old professional, you wanted to be at the top of important organizations like you did, what advice would you give that person? How do you grow up in this world, how do you grow up in this environment where you have the desire to be responsible for $150 million and thousands of people, for example?
Well, in every generation is different. They're not, now people have to work hard for 20s or 30s to not just be involved with the social communication side. How are you a lifelong learner? How do you position yourself to take that next step? And then, I like, one of the things I like about Retained, the role is, I've been helping people get jobs and talking to them about their careers for 30 years. Now I just get paid for it, but I do need, if you have any listeners that are looking to do search, I get a lot of people that are calling me already saying, hey, I'm looking for my next job. I'm like, that's great, I'll put you on the list, but I need somebody that's going to use us to do that. And the company, our subsidiary company, Tier 4 Group, is a great company. They've been doing search at the staffing level, tech staffing level, and some CIO level for 10 years. So it's not like we're starting from scratch. But I do think that, first of all, people, recently young people that I've met with, it's not all of them, but they're like, well, I'm looking for my next role. And then they're posting something on Indeed, and they're going through a process that isn't necessarily going to get them to that next level. So from a standpoint of actually going in and trying to get the job to the next level, they need to be more focused. They need to have more of a target. And they need to have a lot of confidence that they can do it. And men tend to have, I'm generalizing here, I don't want to get in trouble on your show here, but men generally have a lot more confidence than women when they're looking for that next job. And the joke around my circles is that a guy can have 5 of the 10 requirements for the job and say, I'm confident I can do the job, I know I can do the job. Where a woman may have 9 of the 10 and say, well, I don't think I'm ready for the job because I can't do that one thing. It's changing, and that's just a broad generalization, but I do think that, again, neither one is exactly right, but men tend to, from maybe our history, say, I can do that job. But I do think that they need to target where they want to go and do that with confidence. And then, I've got a book here that I haven't started reading it yet, but it's Win the Relationship, Not the Deal, by Casey Jaycox. We have we have a retreat next week, and everybody's going to read the book. And so it is, a lot of it is about, building your strengths, being a lifelong learner, and then building relationships. And most jobs now, for those jobs, are going to be, advancements are going to be through, unless you're really established and have your name out there, but it's it's relationships, it's people that somebody's going to give you a chance to take that next level. So, networking, this might be an old school answer, but I still go out about 2 or 3 nights a week networking at one event or another, because it's part of my role to, get to know, to contribute back, but also to get to know people, so that they get to know me. Where I don't think you could be effective, just using social media, just being on the network, but it's just like this remote work versus not remote work, whatever the philosophy is. But I'm hearing people now say, well, I think in 5 years, most companies are going to be back to non-remote, because what they're seeing is a lot of people aren't as effective. And, collaboration is different online than it is a lot of times in person. You can walk by an office, have a conversation, bring a group of people together, and you can do all this online, I know, but again, maybe it's my own thinking on that.
Tino, you just mentioned 2 golden nuggets for the audience. So if you guys are listening to this, with these 2 things, you will have nothing but success in life. You have to learn how to network, and you have to build relationships. And that's why networking is such an important part, because the relationship comes after the network. The network is to meet the people, and once you meet the people, you start building those trusting relationships. And that's the foundation of any business. And you're right, there is a lot of happening online right now, Tino, but we are social beings. We were wired for community. If you look, I was looking yesterday at the statistics for suicide, for drug addiction, for drug overdose. In 2023, it grew 200% from the year before. It has never grown so fast in the history of the United States and Canada. And why is that? Well, since COVID, we did this switch, and people think that it's okay to have a remote job and never see anybody except through a screen. That's not true. You are living a void that only a relationship can create. and that have one-on-one interaction also grow, like, growing inside a job. Like, how would you grow if you cannot present yourself and what you can do to your superiors, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I met with a young man. Mom asked me to meet with him. He was just out of college, had a good job with a big company. You would know the name. And he says, I think I'm going to leave because everybody's working from home, and it's hard to have a mentor, understand what's going on in the company. Even if the young people come in the company, the bosses aren't necessarily there. He just felt like he was isolated, and he was like, I'm a go-getter, I'm an achiever. How am I going to move to the next level if no one knows, where I am, how I'm doing? And that's happened a lot. Now, I think, there's some young people and older people that can figure out a way to maneuver around that. And I think he did stay with the job and is figuring it out. But, that's some of the challenges that people are having now, that are young and they want to grow and they want to show what they can do. And I think there's some statistics, and I can't quote them. David, you might know them, or it just seems to be a fact. If you come in the office, if you have your choice, you come in the office and your leaders are in the office, and somebody has the same choice but decides to work remotely, the people in the office are more likely to get the promotions and all because their bosses are going to see them in action. They're going to be communicating. So yeah, if you have a choice, make sure you spend some time finding ways to be with your superiors and people that can see what you can do and show your action. And you can do that. I mean, you and I know we can do that remotely, and we can do it through, commitments to writing and papers and, all that kind of thing. But I think the edge up is if you're face to face with somebody, and, you're just going to have that advantage.
Incredible. The time went by so fast. It's been 45 minutes, and I want to respect your time. I'm going to ask you one last question before we finish the podcast. If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write it in?
Well, the first word that came to mind was tenacity, just because for me, a lot of my being a ex-athlete, the word X is very visible in that, is I always feel like that for me, trying to advance, it's, you're not just doing, work, but you're outworking people in the right ways. You're doing the best you can. And that was sort of in sports, if you want to be the best. And I wasn't the best in college and in my sport because I had distractions with the rest of life, where, the best, if I had the talent, which I'm not sure if I did, and I was okay, but the best were people that just really had the discipline to that activity. So I like the word tenacity, and so I guess that's what I would put on it. And along with that, hopefully I put on purpose, because I do like to see the results, whether it's having some kind of impact on people is important.
It's true. Thank you so much. Tenacity is what you need. And it's funny because after all my years, I figured out that you only have to be 5% better than somebody else to get to advance in life as an organization or as an individual. But achieving that 5% will take the majority of your time, and that's where the tenacity comes in, right?
Yeah.
When people say, I'm not willing to do that extra step, that's the step that you got to take in order to succeed. And that's the price it takes. You want to be successful, it's like you, Tino, right? Like taking that huge risk where you went from, when you went and started, you created like an organization with more than 30,000 members from 300 members. That's incredible, right? But you took that leap of faith and you had the tenacity to do it. And having that confidence and that faith that it could be done, right?
Right. And I think I'd say, and you'd probably agree, there's not, a lot of people talk about work-life balance. And I had whole communication with my last staff on this, and we didn't agree, but I just said there isn't really work-life balance. It's whatever you're doing at the point of time, doing it the best you can. Some weeks you're going to be more doing one thing versus the other, but there's if you think there's going to be a balance, how many hours you're going to be at home, how many hours you're going to be at work, you're probably not going, if you're looking to build a business or achieve things, you're probably not going to be able to do it with that mindset.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like for me as an entrepreneur, work-life balance makes no sense because work is also life. It's life balance.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
However, most people don't think that way, and that's okay. That's why an organization have leaders and then they have followers. So if you want to be a leader, you have to have this mentality. And that doesn't mean get rid of your family. It just means when you're with them, do the best you can with them, and working, do the best you can working, right? And so maximize your life.
I love what you said, and I've said this many times, is work should be life. It's not like this is something that's drudgery. I don't think I've ever had a job, maybe in high school I did, some tough jobs that's why I went to college, that's part of the thing, but I don't think I ever had a job where I didn't enjoy it and felt like I was making impact, and it was part of being life. It wasn't like, okay, I'm going to segment that off and that's work. And then there's the rest of life. I'm just working to do the rest of life. Yeah, that's if people have that, everybody has a different philosophy on things, but yeah, I'm a believer that work is life. Life is work.
Well, think about it. Just think about it. Like if you're a normal person, 8 of your waking hours are dedicated to your work, right? At least 8 if you're a normal person.
At least 8.
And you have what? How many awakened hours? Maybe 16 hours?
Yeah.
Half
the time.
You're telling me that you're going to suffer for half of your time in your whole life. So you're going to give up, 30 years of your life being miserable.
Right. Right. Well,
find another career. It's not worth it.
Do something else. Do something you love. Exactly. All right. Well, David, thank you. I look forward to getting this, and then we'll spread the word through our.
Sounds good, Tino. If people would like to find out from for your 2 new businesses that you are doing, where can they find you? Like, for example, there is a company that wants to hire your services for recruiting, or if somebody wants to get a software done by your custom software solutions company, where can they?
Yeah, thanks. So the website's Retained is just being built, but it's retained.com, and the other one is Relevantz with a Z at the end, RELEVANTZ. Relevantz, and that's relevantz.com. So they can find it there, or they can reach me at tino.mantella@retained.com or tino.mantella@relevantz.com. So I answer to both. So
wonderful, Tino. God bless you. Have a beautiful rest of the week.
Bless you.
Keep rocking the world for the better thing.
Thank you, David. Appreciate this.
Yes.
All right, take care. Bye.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.